Oh no! No. Oh, I sewed that in wrong. Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. You don't want to miss anything in today's video. I give you a ton of tips and tricks on how to eliminate and end your fabric scrap pile for good. Well, maybe not for good, but you know. You'll make a really good dent in them with this scrappy crumb cake quilt on point. Do you want to try and make this exact quilt? Well, you know, not exact because your scraps are different from mine, but if you need a roadmap, no worries. Hit the like, subscribe, and I will let you screenshot what you need to make this quilt at the end of this tutorial. You're welcome. Enough talking already. Let's get busy mowing through our scraps. Now, if you are a regular viewer of my channel, you probably realized, hey, where is Tracy? She is not in her sewing room. You're right, I'm not. I'm in an Airbnb. Believe it or not, I have to rent this, my family and I, for a month or two because I have some work being done at my house on the roof. So yeah, so I grabbed all that I could to make a couple quilts while I'm here. I knew I wanted to scrap quilt while I was here in this Airbnb. So I, of course, grabbed all of my scrap bags off of my scrap wall of fame. You know about my scrap bags. You know that they were overflowing full. Well, I've got them down to about half full now, and I am super excited about that. Let me set these down here. One of the first things you're gonna do when you are preparing to make the crumb cake on point, you need to gather up all of your scraps, grab all of your bins, wherever you keep them. I know you have piles of them, I know you do. Take them all out. And I want you to press them. I know, that's a feat in itself. Honestly, it will help you in the end if you press them. That is a huge tip. And if you have any that are kind of wonky and, you know, at the ends and stuff, try to make a straight cut on those. Some I just left like this because I'll deal with it later when I go to connect it all. But, you know, it's better if you can have some straight edges. And it doesn't matter the size of scrap. Any size scrap, just press them. I'm going to be making 9.5-inch blocks. The first thing you need to do is go through all of your scraps and pick out some focus points, some focal fabric. And for this demonstration, I'm going to focus on this right here. It's just like a pink and white flower. But first I need to press it because this one wasn't pressed with the bunch. Once it's all pressed, then it's time to go in and cut what you want. This focus fabric can be any size you want. It doesn't even have to be perfectly square. Just keep in mind though that we use 1/4-inch seam allowances, and so when you go to cut this, make sure that the part of the focus fabric that you want on there, that you have a 1/4-inch next to it. That way, the whole picture focus fabric that you want in there will make it in, you know, depending on your print and such. So for reference, let's see. This one is going to be 3x4, and that's all it is. It's just like a whatever piece of fabric with whatever print you want. This is still good, so I'm going to throw that back in the pile. Oh yeah, the other tip I want to give you. Color code your piles, so that way when we go to grab to make our strip, we can, you know, make it really diverse and contrast with all of the colors that you see here. So once you have a bunch of your focus fabrics all cut out in any size, then it's time to go in and make a bunch of strip sets. The block that I'm gonna share with you and demonstrate with you, I still have to fill in on my quilt. I'm totally not done. So yeah, you're gonna help me finish. So this is where all the fun comes into play here. I kid you not, I have had a ton of fun so far making this quilt, and I'm so excited to do the rest of it too. So this is not a boring quilt, friends, not one bit. This is how I constructed the strips. I would go through my pile and I would pick out different fabrics that had about the same type width to them. I mean, and they don't have to be perfect. You can see that those two are totally different widths. Let's go into the yellows because you want it to be really diverse. So that is not cut straight, but we're gonna use it anyways. Let's grab some aqua. This is pretty. And and let's see, maybe some navy, something like that. So that will be one of the strips. So let me show you how I do that. The first thing I'm going to do though is straighten this one up because this is a hot mess right here. And I'm not even going to check and see what the width actually is on this. I'm just going to make sure that it has straight edges. And you'll notice on my quilt too that I actually have some slanted edges. You can do that as well. That adds a ton of interest. Now for this particular strip, I think that that one is too long. So I'm gonna cut that off, and you can see there's a little, you know, blip there at the end. So we're just gonna get rid of that right now. And so I'm gonna throw that one back in the pile, and I'm gonna use these two for the moment. So I'm just gonna put right sides together. You can see they're not even totally straight with each other. One has more of a width, and you're gonna connect those two together. Since I'm gonna add more to this particular strip, I'm gonna go in and just add sort of toward the end though, because, you know, I wanna save as much fabric here as I can, but you wanna make sure though that you're actually covering the one side. And how you can tell that, when I go to put right sides together, because this is the shorter edge right here, think of length here. When I connect these together, it's going to go like that and peel back, and I'm going to press that, right? So when I go to put this on here, right sides together, I want to make sure that that piece covers that purple piece, because if I were to connect it and it was like that, I would be cutting off that purple piece, and you know, I don't want to make it that small. So I'm gonna go in and just make sure when I put right sides together that that edge covers that purple edge. It'll make more sense when you get into the trenches of this quilt. Now, if I was done with this, I would press it, but I'm not. I want to add more to it. So I think I'm going to go in and add this, but you can see here that this is wrinkled. So I'm going to press that real quick. And I'm going to do the same thing. When I add this piece on, I'm going to make sure that it covers this edge. That will ensure that when I go to peel this back, I'm going to be okay here. That I'm going to catch as much as I possibly can. I almost forgot this one. Okay, so let me see here. Let me add this one on real quick. So the next thing I'm going to do is press all of these. And you know what? Press them to whatever side they want to go to. That's my tip here for this. You can see that this is pushing this way. See that seam allowance? That's pushing that way. That's pushing that way. This one's pushing that way, and this one's pushing that way. And why it does that is one fabric is stronger than the other. When you're dealing with scraps, you have, you know, typically one that is stronger than the other because you have all different kinds of walks of fabric here. So that tip alone will save you on whether or not, you know, whichever way you should press it, really. It doesn't really matter when it's a scrap quilt. It's like anything goes, right? So once that is nice and pressed, then you're going to come in with a longer ruler. And you're going to find your shortest point, which we knew was this because that's what we were kind of gauging our strip on. I'm going to follow along there, and I am going to line up on my seam allowances because this one is pretty straight, but sometimes you won't be able to line up your ruler on your seam allowance because you've cut it at an angle or sewed it at an angle or whatever. It doesn't matter though. If it's at an angle, it's fine. Just as long as you get your strip set here straight, the seam doesn't really matter. You know, because it is a scrap quilt, right? And when you get to the end there, make sure that you're going to cap that off with your rotary cutter. And this one can go back in the scrap pile. Turn your strip, And, ooh, look at there. See how that one's short right there? That one we didn't gauge very well, did we? Okay, so we're gonna come in where that is because that's our shortest point. And it's gonna cut off a lot of this. Make sure you're straight on the ends. I mean, you don't really have to make sure you're straight on the ends really because a lot of times we won't even make it to the end. We'll be cutting it off prior to that. So this is about a 2-inch strip this ends up being. The more varied your strip widths are, the better. Trust me, you're gonna get that nice look of just anything goes. Now here's where things get really fun. You can choose to leave your strip like this, and we could, you know, bring up our block like that, and we can gauge this here and cut that off there and connect that because we're going to be doing a log cabin effect look with the crumb cake. That totally works, and I did a lot of my quilt like that. But I've showed you before how to do this, and I always forget about this technique that you might not know it, but I'm gonna show it to you right now. With this next technique, you're gonna take the strip you just made, and now mind you, you only want your strips to be about, you know, 10 to 15 inches in length. This one's a little longer than that. So you wanna make your strips that you make about 10 to 15 inches in length. Because honestly, that's all we're going to be working with, you know, really. Well, we're only going to be working with about 9.5 to 10.5 when we go to make the insets for our points. So now with this strip, all I'm going to do is grab some other different color fabrics, and I'm going to line that up here so the edge is there, and I'm going to get my pins, pin that. Grab another one. And these ones you want to make sure they are square. And this orange one here needs to be cut. Take that orange one and yeah, I'm gonna lay it just like that right next to this. It'll make more sense here in a second if you've never seen me do this. Next, I'm going to add a red one right there. And you want to set them close with each other. Going with a pink. Well, I think I want the pink to go this way because I want it to cover those two. Look at that ratty scrap. Oh my word, that's probably been around for a long time. And this one needs to be cut straight. Lay that right here after you've cut it, and it covers a little bit of this fabric and mostly this fabric, and we're real close. You're about to be amazed, friends, if you've never seen me do this. Then you're going to come in and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance right down the edge of that entire strip. Take out your pins as you go. Then you're going to pull it off, and then all we're going to do is take and cut right in between these fabrics right here. Make sure that you can get them, you know, sort of straight here. And some people press at this point too. You can press all of them open. Like if it was just there, we would press them open, and we'll do that maybe on the next one. I'll show you. Right now I'm just going to cut these right down the in-betweens of those fabrics. And then you're going to press them. Look at that cutie pie, right? What this does is give you a bunch of 2 and 3 or even 4 patches in some cases of little scrappies to work with. Now what we can do is take this, for instance, let's square this up really good. I mean, this is so much fun, friends. I can't even begin to tell you how much fun that I have had making this quilt. It's amazing. If you love to scrap quilt, then you are absolutely going to adore making this quilt. Trust me. So now say you have a bunch of the strips all set up, and then you have a bunch of these. Say I had this one left over from another block. So when I made strip sets earlier, I had this one, and you know the selvage needs to be cut off here, but I will show you with this block what I mean. You can add more interest to your quilt by taking this block here and setting that just like that. That'll add a lot more interest, or maybe we want to make it like that, depending. Or we can turn it this way and connect it there or there. I think I like that one. So if I'm gonna do that, then I just go like that, and then I come along the side here and cut those off, and then I am able to use these in another block, right? So then I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna sew these together. And then I'm gonna definitely press. You see that? You see how that is going this way? That's the way you need to press this block. It has never failed me, that tip, trust it. Now we have this block, and I'm going to come in here and I'm just gonna trim it up. Now I'm gonna look over here. You see, remember we had a focal fabric, right? You see that? That's about just right. And even though this is shorter than this block, I'm still going to use it because look at all the interest there. So we're going to put right sides together. We're gonna sew that onto our focus fabric. Oh yeah. So if you're looking at this way, this is our focus fabric, and here we've taken this chunk and put it right here and sewed it to here. Now we could have totally have grabbed one that was closer to this size and added it to there. But you tell me, is there more interest with just, you know, one fabric next to it? Or is there more interest here where we have put a bunch of different patterns and prints and colors together, making this one block and then adding it? I like doing it this way because it just adds a ton more interest to this quilt. So focus fabric, then we've added this chunk here. Next, we're going to add a chunk of fabric here. You can do one fabric print there if you want, or you can do as many as you like, how we did over here. You can literally choose what you want to do, either this or a strip. It's like anything goes. It's just so much fun. So here I'm going to go in and I'm just going to square everything up like so that way I can be ready for the next piece. Now we said we're going to add here. Now let's look at this, what we just made. That strip is not going to work because it's not long enough. We could always add one to it as well. Or let's take this. We'll do one strip. I have connected here a yellow. Well, we could even leave the yellow. This one though, I'm going to make sure that this is straight before we add that. Focal, one chunk here, and now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add this. Here's another major tip for you. When you go to add a strip onto another piece like this that's together right here, there's a seam all along here. Make sure that this seam, if there is one in this strip, that is offset from this seam. Because if we're going to put seams together, it's going to be too bulky. So you want to always shift your fabric just a little bit so that the seams are offset. So there's that piece, and we're going to go in and we are going to trim off this end. And turn it and trim the other end. Now, if you're not perfect on your cuts in your sewing, don't worry about it. This quilt is majorly forgiving. So that's where we're at so far. I mean, that looks great, right? So this chunk we added, then this chunk we added. Now let's see if this one fits over here. Ooh, it does. Look at that. That fits perfectly. You know, but if we go that way, you know, the seams are too much together there. So I think this is going to work better. So 1, 2, and 3. This is our third add-on. And this one fits perfectly, so I'm going to try and sew that on perfect. Try, that's the word. Okay, looking good. It doesn't look like anything needs to be trimmed, but you can always go in with your ruler and just test it to see, you know, if you're straight. Because we do want our blocks to lay flat and be straight in the end, right? So it doesn't really matter how it goes on the inside, but the edges matter. We adhered chunk 1, chunk 2, chunk 3, and now we need to go in with a 4. I'm thinking we need something like that. And maybe a green or something. So this block that we cut earlier, let's see if we added that to that one. Yeah, that'll cover. Do we want it here or do we want it there? Or we could do it there. Let's do it there. And this needs ironed. Now remember though, I would have a bunch of these strips already sewn up and ready to go. So I'm kind of just doing them, you know, on the fly here. But like these ones are leftover blocks from, you know, the quilt that I did, that you see up here, that I've been working on. So all these are just cut-offs from, you know, those. So you can see where I've made a lot and then cut a lot though too. So the other tip I can give you, make sure that your iron is right next to you. I call it the trifecta. So having your sewing machine, your iron, and your cutting board and everything in a nice little trifecta so you don't have to go anywhere. And yeah, since I'm at this Airbnb, I'm totally standing up while sewing. So my calves are getting some good exercise here. Because this table is so high here, I mean, yeah. So this one needs to be adhered here. So I think that looks good, and I'm making sure that this seam right here is going here where there's no seam that it has to compete with. I'm gonna flip it. I'm going to go in and cut this excess off. Now you can see here where this one looks like it angled down, and that's okay, and this one is angled. Interest, right? That's going to add interest because we're really not fussing with all that, right? We're not fussing with if it's straight or not. We're just not. That's not the kind of quilt this is. So this is where we're at so far. So once you've at least made one pass around your focal fabric, meaning focal fabric, one attachment, second attachment, third attachment, and then fourth attachment, then you're going to stop for a second and check and see what else you need as far as how much more you need on this side and how much more you need on this side to make that 9.5 inch block. So I'm just going to line this up, and I can see here that going this way, I have 9.25, and here I have up to 8. So I need to make up the difference here and add something on this side, and make up the difference here and add it on that side. Since I added this one last, this fourth chunk, I know that I need to add here and I need to add here, but that's not always the rule. There's been some times where the next step is to add over here because you're going in a clockwise effect around the focal fabric. I've literally taken a piece and put it on the opposite side just because it went better. So it's anything goes, friends, really. So over here, we're almost there. We're at 9 1/4, but you really, you know, putting on, you would need to put on a 1/2 inch, but a 1/2 inch is going to be kind of wonky and, you know, isn't going to be laying right on the edge of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave off about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch on this side. And I'm also going to shave off a little bit over here, and then I'm going to add a piece that's a little bit wider. So that way, you know, it gives it a chance to hang on there when you're attaching it to the next block. So I'm just going to come in here, and you can see there it's probably about 1/4 inch or so. And I'm just going to take off the side there, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to also take off about 1/4 inch. Now, it's not always that you have a short end. You know, sometimes you'll have a really wide end, and you may need to cut that if it's too wide. It just all depends on the moment, you know, what you're feeling like at the moment. We need a 9 1/2 inch block. So I'm going to push my ruler. Hopefully you can see this. I don't know, I'm hoping you can see it. So if I'm going to start over here and I'm going to go to 9 1/2, I'm going to grab a piece and I'm just going to eyeball it to see, overlap it with some seam allowances and see if it'll definitely go to 9 1/2. And it definitely does. And this one I already had from another block that I had cut off. So I'm going to use it because we want to use everything we got, right? So I'm going to come over here and remember to test out where your seam allowances are, because you don't want to stack these on top of each other. You want them to have their own space within the block where you connect it. So I'm just going to flip that over and sew that on. Remember to let your seam go where it wants to go. Now let's see what we got here. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make sure I'm at 9 1/2, and I am exactly there. Look at me. Oh yeah. You can tell I've been doing this for a minute up in this Airbnb, right? Oh my goodness, but I have been having some major fun. Now look at how tiny that one is. It's still a little over 1/4 inch, so it's going to be fine within the seam. And there'll be a tiny bit of purple peeking out in the end there, so it'll look good. Trust me, it will. Anything goes. And so here I'm going to make sure I'm at 9 1/2, and then I'm going to trim, make sure your ruler doesn't move. So now we know this is 9 1/2 inches across, and that's exactly what we need. Now for this side, let's go ahead and add these two together, these two scraps. And I'm gonna leave that there and just come in and attach on the straight sides. Now you can see here, look at this scrap. You have to, you know, really look at your scraps, because you see that? Sometimes you may see those. So now I know that I need to trim that off when I go to trim this. But let's see, did we check and see how big we needed? Yeah, this one's at 8, so we need another 1.5 inches. We need about another couple inches there, say. And in order to make this, the side there, I'm gonna probably have to add another one. But remember though too that, you know, this should be done already, and I really don't have to go looking per se, but I am because, you know, I'm doing it for this video, right? When you realize that anything goes, I think that'll take the pressure off of you, really. So I'm just going to come in and get some straight edges here. Line up best you can. Remember, it doesn't have to be straight. You can be wonky in here, you know, as long as you're straight here where you're gonna actually attach it. And I'm gonna go up as far as that ends to maximize that piece. Okay, let's see if it fits now. Oh yeah, it sure does. So we added, what did we add last? We added this one on here. So what did we do? We went 1, 2, 3, 4. And we ended up adding 5 on the opposite side, didn't we? Oh well. Like I said, see, anything goes. You can put it wherever you want. It doesn't matter. So now for this one, I think I'm going to add it over here. No, I think I am going to go down here. So here I'm just going to make sure that I clear all of the seam allowances, have their own breathing space there. And we're just going to add that. I'm looking for 9.5 over here. Come in just a little bit, and 9.5 down here. This is the part where you really need to make sure it's good and squared up, right? So that is 9.5 square, and it is all set to go. Let me show you. So this is 9.5 inches square, just like the rest of these, and they can go ahead and get in the lineup. So say right there, or right there, or right there. Before I show you what we're gonna do with the 10.5 inch block that we're gonna make, let me show you some of the 9.5 inch blocks that are done in pastels. Because you can see here where I've taken and added pastels to give your eye a place to rest. I thought of that last minute and decided to do that. But there are some tips and tricks that I want to share with you when it comes to pastels or low volumes where you're trying to get the eye to rest, especially in a busy quilt like this. So here is a tip on the pastel blocks that's going to probably blow your mind. Let me ask you this. Do you have a ton of pastel fabrics just sitting around? I sure don't. But I do have some low volumes and, you know, light colored fabrics like that. But I really wanted it to be pastels. So let me show you the trick here. Isn't that pretty? The pastels. You have a green, you have an orange there, a pink, and some type of yellowish color. Now, mind you, these are just cutoffs from when I did, you know, the pastel blocks that are up there already. Watch when I turn this over. This is the right side. Well, so you think, right? Look at that. Those are all pretty bright colors that could stand alone in this quilt as, you know, in a regular 9.5 inch quilt block that I'm making. But I wanted pastels. So what I did was I literally flipped the fabric to the wrong side, and look at that. Is that not pretty? I mean, it just gives it that soft look, and I guarantee you that nobody is going to know. Nobody's going to be none the wiser. Trust it. So here I want you to take a look at, even though these are kind of pastel-y, I went ahead and put them with their right sides up, which I probably totally could have, you know, turned that one over anyways, but I didn't. So I turned this one over, and this one with the butterfly, and then this right here, and I want you to see that. Look at that. All much brighter. But when you turn them to the wrong side, they take on a totally different look. Here is the right side that I used. And here's that, it's a darker green. And then let's see this one. Now for this one, I did choose to turn, even though it was already pastel-y, I just was doing all kinds of different things. I added it on with the wrong side facing out. Here's another example of it being brighter on that side, and then when you flip it over, and this one I left, and this one was a little too dark, You can see there, and I also flipped that one over. So let me show you on the blocks here on my actual quilt. Now on this one, I don't think I flipped any over. You see, I ran out of the pastel-y scraps. I really didn't have any to begin with, to be honest. This is a really good example here. This one is turned backwards. This one's backwards, 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 backwards. So the only one that's facing out with its actual right side is this one and this one. But you see how nice that gives that pastel look. Let me see if I can take this off and you can really see it. Because I just have the slanted rows together. Look at that, how much bright that is on the back. It's crazy, right? Totally works. No one is going to know, trust me. Unless you tell them though, right? There's another low volume pastel. That one, I totally did that one wrong side out. The whales are definitely, I mean, it's mostly, I think the whole thing's wrong side out except for this. So yeah, those are my pretty pastel blocks that I put in here for eye relaxation, resting, right? So just follow that same rule that we did with the darker scraps for the pastel scraps. It's just that easy. Next, we need to make the 10.5-inch blocks for the inset triangles. Whenever you have something on point like this, it's not, you know, a perfect square that you're looking at. You literally turn it like that. You have to have setting triangles. And that will help it to, let's see if I can get one down here. Maybe not. No, they're all sewn in. You would have like a piece, you know, that resembles a triangle that goes here on all of the sides because the insides are all connected with the other blocks. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So this block is already 9.5-inch square, but we need to make it 10.5. So it needs to be another whole inch, you know, ready to go. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take some of the sides off of this one because I don't want that bulk of the color to be next to the real tiny, teeny, skinny piece. You know what I mean? And since this one is kind of whitish, I'm going to actually take and get that white off of there because I don't like it, you know? And it's my quilt. I can do what I want, right? And so can you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I grabbed this. I already had these two together, and I'm going to add this to that, making it longer. Okay, I just pressed that, and now I'm going to trim it. And I can already tell that this is not straight. It does not have a straight cut. Look, when I pull it that way, you see how it curves that way? Yeah, we need to get rid of that. So how I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna make sure that this is straight here. And then I'm gonna push it as far as I can this way until that top of the ruler there hits that piece. And then square that off. Okay. Now to figure this out where I want this, I probably should have cut it off from over there, which I still can because this yellow and yellow, I didn't realize that. So let's take a look here. Yeah, I think that looks good there. And what will that give me? Oh, remember we want 10.5, right? 10.5 is what we're doing. So if we overlap that, we're going to be probably right at 10.5. So I think that'll work. And these are the setting triangles, so we're not going to be too fussy with it because I have given you enough room with the measurement of 10.5 that when you do slice this for the setting triangle, you're going to have some to cut off, because I know we all have different seam allowances and that just works better if we have excess. In my opinion anyways. I always like to have a little extra, a little excess, right? This is a 10.5 inch ruler, so we should have about 10.5. It just needs to be straightened up. Yep. I also wanted to give you the tip here. You can see this little hourglass block, and it's offset wonky in here because it was a cut off from when I did, I don't know, I think actually it was my strawberry quilt when I made a bunch of those hourglass blocks or whatever they're called, or shattered dish or whatever, I don't know. Remember there was a big controversy over what the heck that was called. Well, this was just a cut off and it was wonky, so I just threw it in here. And that is a great idea if you have any just odd blocks just sitting around, tiny scraps. You just make them the focal point. And all of a sudden they're the star of the show in that block. And you know what? Who would have known, right? It probably would have never made it to show anywhere else. So in this quilt, it shines. All right, so we have another 1.5 inches plus the 1/4 inch seam allowance to take up here. So we need to find something else. I don't think I've used this print in this quilt yet, and this has been in a lot of my scrappy quilts from day one. I have this fabric, and you ever have that fabric that just keeps showing up, right? Well, this is one of them for me. So let's see, what can we put with this? How about we add the little honeycomb with the bees? How cute, right? So I'm not going to iron just yet. I'm going to look for another piece yet to add in. Oh yeah, how about some sailboats? Let's see here. I'll just line it up there. Yeah, that'll take the cut for sure. So I'm just going to add this on here. I'm going to give it a good press. And then I'm going to straighten this up. And you see, I'm not really adhering to what I actually needed. I'm going a little bit wider. So just because I don't want to fuss with it too much. And that's how I do my scrap quilts. I don't really try to fuss too much with exacts ever. So even on a regular quilt, I think, I just kind of do it. So I'm just lining up with the shortest piece, which is this pink fabric. I'm checking here along here, just so I get a straight cut. That sailboat fabric is super cute. I don't ever get to use it just in my scrap quilts, that's it. Because I don't really have anything where it would go. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, I like that. Should we put the blue there? No, well, but this is gonna be cut in half, so it doesn't really matter. So let's see, I think probably, let's go about right there. So what I'm looking at is where the seam is here, and the seam is here, and where the seam is there. You're gonna eliminate bulk that way. Give it a press. Now let's go in for that 10.5. So when I line this up, all along here is 10.5, so it should just be the top area because we've already measured the other. Line it up. and slice. Now, because I'm in this Airbnb, I don't have a long enough ruler to make a mark on the back of this to cut it. So I'm going to share with you a tip on how I found the center of these blocks to cut them for the setting triangles. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold it in half one way, and I'm going to look at it. Is there good interest there? And then I'm going to flip it over. Is there good interest there? Yeah, that looks, I like how that goes like that and that like that. And then I'm going to open it and I'm going to flip it the other way because I want to see if there's even better interest from this angle. I'm going to flip it. I kind of like that there. I don't like that big chunk of that, but let's try it this way again and see. Yeah, I like that. So I think I like this angle the best. So once I figure out which I think has the best interesting points when folded, because that's going to be our cut line here where the fold is, I'm then going to grab my iron and I'm going to make a memory crease right there. Now, if you have a ruler that's long enough, which I don't here, you can just open it up and from point to point, put your ruler here and here. But if you notice, look, when I lay this down, you know, yeah. So it doesn't go all the way. So what I'm going to do is just line up in that ditch of the memory crease that I just made. And that is where I'm going to slice this 10.5-inch block. And if I go here and I just lay it up to there where the ditch is, it's very easy to veer off on these. So that's why you definitely want to mark it either with a memory crease or with your pencil or, you know, whatever. So here we have 2 setting triangles. So let me show you with these that we just made. We just cut these 10.5s right down the line there. You're going to take the one piece. This is the one corner, right? And they inset just like that within this quilt. And you'll have all of these. Now you'll use the other side, of course. And if there are 2 fabrics that are alike, like this one here on the corner and this one, you may want to take this one and put this one on the other side of the quilt. You know, I mean, they vary because, you know, we made them really scrappy. So you could just put those 2 next to each other if you wanted, but I'm probably going to, you know, put it on the other side just because, you know, that's who I am. So yeah, that is the setting triangles and how you make those. There is one other block that you need to know how to make for this quilt, and they are on all 4 corners of this quilt. So once you get all of those setting triangles in those spots along the side and on the top, then you need to, of course, make the 4 corners. I call it almost like capping the quilt off. I don't know if that's the right term or not, but so how you make those 4 caps, you only need 4 of them, is you're going to go ahead and make that 10.5-inch square like we just made, all scrappy. And then you're going to do what we did, make a memory crease, you're going to cut it in half. But what you're now going to do is take that 1/2 and you're going to fold it in half again, and you're going to make a memory crease, and then you're going to cut that. So that will give you 4 little caps, and hopefully you can see this. That is what this is up here and what it is over there in the corner. So I hope that makes sense. I wanted to pop in here real quick and let you know about this corner area. So if this is that top right-hand corner, this is that cap that I talked about, and this is the setting triangle. Now, how I figured out the dimensions, I went bigger, making that 10.5-inch square, which actually does make it a lot bigger than the 9.5-inch square here, as far as the setting triangle goes. But when you go to cut it into 4s to make that cap, it looks like it's way smaller, but it's not. It's actually just the right perfect size for the 9.5-inch block. So when you go to trim this quilt up, you can do it probably after you free motion quilt it or after you quilt it, however you do it. I mean, you don't have to trim it right after. I would probably wait, you know, and, you know, to see what's left after you free motion quilted it. but you can see there that that is quite a bit to trim. It's probably about a ½ inch or more. So, you know, it is what it is. I tried to make the dimensions as easy as possible. So you will have that much to cut and trim off in the end. But I just wanted you to note that so you weren't like shocked when you go to put your quilt together. Okay, on to the next step. Okay, friends, how exciting is this? I have every single block that I need for this crumb cake quilt done. As you can see here, I've already put them into rows. Now the rows are a bit different when you turn things on point. You sort of have to angle them and put them together like that. But if you can take your hands and shift your quilt so that that corner is straight up, then you will have some nice rows to put together. It's just like normal. So this one here, I did not add my setting triangle. So I'm going to do that right now here on camera so you can see what that looks like. Set my setting triangle there. So all you're going to do here is just take this setting triangle and flip it over right sides. And all you're going to do is just match up these corner angles. And you're going to leave this tip sticking straight out. Remember, I made them a little bit bigger, so you're going to have that hangover. But when you go to put your caps on, one of those 4 caps, it's going to seem smaller. But it's all going to work out in the end, trust me. As always, a 1/4 inch seam. Now you are going to want to press after you get these setting triangles on. And remember that tip, turn it over and see which side that it tries to go to. Now you can tell here, this one's kind of fighting. So I'm going to just push it, you know, whichever way I want at that point. It's almost like strong arming those seams, right? But they got to go some way. They just can't stick out there in no man's land, right? So that setting triangle is on there. So I'm going to put this back up. And I'm just going to pop a pin here in my design wall so that way I know where everything goes. Now let's see, where else do I have a triangle that needs to go on? Oh, down here. So this is the corner piece. You can see that I've already put one of the caps on. Now we're just going to flip this over, right sides together. Pop a couple pins. Pinning will keep you straight always. I don't always pin, I'm going to admit to you, but when you need to pin, you have to pin because you want it to be straight, right? Give that a good hot press. It's so exciting when you're nearing the end of your quilt top. I get kind of giddy. Do you? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to pin this back up here. And now I'm going to grab this setting triangle over here and connect it to here. Now this one also has a setting triangle down here at the bottom at the end of this row that needs connected. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of rough pin that together on which sides need to be sewn together. And then I'm able to just lift this off. And then I know that that side goes to that side. These ones are a lot easier to sew without pins, but when you go to do the rows, you definitely want a pin. The beauty about the crumb cake quilt is that you and your friends, no one, unless they're a really good quilter, will be able to tell where your actual block is. That's the whole beauty of it. It'll just look like it's just in there crazily. Go ahead and challenge one of your friends if you make this quilt. see if they can find where the block actually ends. I bet you they can't. Well, they probably can find the light colored one. If I were to have it all dark color and no lights, I guarantee you they wouldn't be able to find it. Okay, let's pin this one back up here so we know where it goes. We'll get this one pinned up. I don't even think I'm going to pin the bottom. I'm just going to pin the top, knowing that I need to connect that next. And I think, do I have all of the... No, I don't. I got a couple more setting triangles to hit. So I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm going to put the rest of those setting triangles on, and then I'm going to turn my camera back on, and I'm going to show you how I put those rows on diagonally. Okay, friends, let's get these two big ones together. So I'm just going to grab it and flip it right where it needs to go, and then hold these two pieces together so that I know that those go together. Because trust me, I've gotten that wrong before, and I've paid the price with the seam ripper, so learn from my mistake. And even then, sometimes I second guess myself once I get it pinned. So let me line it up here. Grab my pins. You definitely want to pin these rows because you will get all out of order. So let's see, this goes like that, right? Wait a minute, yeah. Right? Yeah. Why doesn't that match up? Now remember, this is very forgiving, so don't worry if you don't get it on there just right, or if your seams don't match up from block to block. It's all good. I mean, these are all in here crazy, so no one's going to be none the wiser. I'm going to use my ironing board here as a helper. Oh my word, my seams are flipping like crazy. I hate that. Ugh. Now you want to make sure that you press this after you sew them together too. I'm just picking a side at this point, and that's where it's going. Oh, what the heck? Did I run out of thread or something? Why didn't that take? Oh, what happened? My thread is threaded. Did I? Oh, let me see. Ah, bobbin. That's what it is. Ugh. Oh dear. Who else hates having to change bobbin thread? Out of all the technology that we have, someone really needs to come up with the everlasting bobbin thread. For real. Why don't we have that? Woo, look at the dust is flying. oil. Right? You feel the frustration, right? I know you do. Because we only got half a seam done here. What in the world? Ugh. Oh, wait a minute. What did I do wrong? Are you kidding me? What did I do? Are you kidding me? I think that piece. Oh no. Oh no. No. Oh my word. See what I mean here? Oh, I sewed that in wrong. That piece. Oh my word. No. That piece right there needs flopped. Okay, friends, I'm gonna have to fix this, and I'm going to wake up in the morning and we are going to reconvene. So yeah, I cannot believe that this happened. See, this is the thing. When I rush, which I was rushing because my family is coming home with food, I totally messed that up. That is messed up. Wait a minute, it's all messed up. Those should not, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look at this. This is crazy. Oh my word. You gotta be kidding me. Look at, that is messed up. What did I do? What did I do? Oh no. All right, I'm gonna have to look back at the video and I'm gonna have to unpick a lot. So yeah. Oh my word. To be continued tomorrow morning. Well, for you it'll be in the next second, but for me it'll be a long time. All right, see ya. Good morning, sunshine. Oh yeah, it's morning time. Well, I definitely need this coffee right now because I stayed up last night and I fixed this quilt. And I do have a video clip here of me fixing this quilt. And I must have accidentally inverted the two rows somehow, but you can see here where the two rows that are together, all I did was flip them the opposite way, and yeah, that was the mistake. So it was a pretty easy fix. I just had two long rows to unpick, sew back together, and press, those seams out. So it ended up, I got what I wanted in the end, my original quilt pattern, that I laid out for myself. Let me step out of the way here so you can see what my quilt top looks like. The final size of this quilt top will not be the final size of the actual quilt though, because once we quilt everything, it shrinks, and then when you trim down, everything shrinks. So yeah, this quilt top right now as it sits is 66-inch-ish by 77-inch-ish. Before I give you the road map, the pattern for this quilt for you to screenshot, I wanted to remind you that we still have some 3 Amigas Quilt Retreat tickets available if you're interested. We are going to have a ton of fun. Don't forget, Juki Junkies has graciously donated one of the Platinum Juki TL18 Collector's Edition sewing machines to raffle off to win at this retreat. Okay, get your phone ready to screenshot the pattern. I have 2 screenshots for you to take here. One is of the blocks that you need to cut and how to cut them for this quilt. And the other one is for the layout of this quilt if you wanted to do them, with pastels like I did here, and if you wanted to place them in the way that I placed them in my quilt. But remember, you're on the honor system. You have to be a subscriber and you have to hit that like button for me. I'm going to leave it up on the screen here for a second so that you can get that screenshot. If you do end up making this crumb cake quilt on point, please send me pictures of it to thesewingchannel33@gmail.com. I love to get your pictures of all the things that you make that are on my channel. Take a look at your screen right now. I have more crumb cake quilting videos that you probably haven't even seen before. I will link that playlist here on the screen, and I will also link it down in the information box below. All the info about my sewing machine, all the things I use, Juki Junkies, Fat Quarter Shop, all the things you can find down in that information box. Don't be shy, go down there and poke around, right? Until next time at the Sewing Channel, take care.